Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome everybody again to another episode of our show, bringing you another really fascinating guest today, helping to create a better tomorrow on some very unique fronts. As a little background to today's show, mollusks are the largest phylum in the marine kingdom. It comprises somewhere about 23% of all marine organisms out there. It's divided into various groups, and the bivalves, which are species like oysters and clams and mussels and scallops. We consume about 15 million tons of these every year, an additional 5 million tons or so of cephalopods, the squids and the octopus, and also actually around 10 million tons of the third class, the gastropods, the escargot and snails and so forth. So we consume a lot of these species. Most production currently comes from aquaculture or the wild. Today we have the honor of being joined by Nikita Michelsen, who is the founder and chief executive officer of a company called Pearlita Foods, which is the world's first cell-based mollusk company. They're focused on developing sustainable and ethically grown products like oysters and abalone. They're ultimately contaminant-free without compromising flavor or nutrition. Most recently, Nikita served as both the Director of Community and Director of Marketing for SynBioBeta, and their Built with Biology initiative and their innovation network for biologic engineers and innovators and entrepreneurs, ultimately who share information, share a passion for using biology to build a better and more sustainable planet. And now she is involved in this fascinating entrepreneurial journey. Nikita has her undergraduate bachelor's degree in communication from UC Santa Barbara, her master's in information sciences from Aalborg University, and we are honored to have her with us today. So all that being said, welcome Nikita Michelsen to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great having you. You know, as we were chatting beforehand, this is an area of significant interest, not just from the biotech side, but just from the fact that I love mollusks in general as a species. But Nikita, I love to start things off like we typically do by handing you the floor for a little bit, just to introduce yourself a little bit more in your background. Take us to for a few minutes on sort of who you are, where you grew up, how you got interested in the life sciences, and ultimately what got you into sort of the entrepreneurial journey that you're on now, if you would.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to tap into that a little bit. So I actually grew up on the coast of Scandinavia. So, you know, my childhood was filled with fresh seafood like oysters or eel, crayfish, all those type of goodies. But, you know, today they're just increasingly hard to come by. So to me, it's very important that we still have access to these incredibly nutritious and delicious foods, just, you know, culturally important for many people, but also very nutritious. So that's a little bit of background of, you know, why I care about the area. My journey into life sciences was a little bit of a roundabout way. I sort of started off, like you said, with a bachelor's in communication. And so I was just naturally really good at it. I love making boring things interesting to people. I love sort of like bridging gaps between people. Shortly after I finished my degree, I realized, oh, I don't have enough science. I miss it so much. That was my focus in high school. So I kind of tried to figure out how can I build upon this more. And so I found the degree in information studies, which was a little more scientific. you work a lot with end users and you work on different projects on sort of designing whatever it is, like a research design or some type of end product together with end users. So I work with anything from refugees to recommender systems for public media. And that was very fascinating. And more science communication. But again, I wasn't satisfied. I wanted more science. And I was lucky enough to land the position of director of marketing at SynBioBeta, where I really got to work with startups. And I kind of saw, my passion from an early age with, seafood and just being a foodie and how important it is for our culture in Scandinavia, and kind of how that is tied into science and how we can, use all these incredible new technologies to make something that is identical, that is just as tasty and nutritious, but doesn't rely on, for instance, the state of the ocean that today, unfortunately, is becoming more and more contaminated. We have rising temperatures, different things that are threatening the ecosystems there. So those are some of the background there. I also have an entrepreneurial family. My dad was an entrepreneur. My sister is an entrepreneur. So I was exposed to that world from a very young age and was just fascinated by, building something and really feeling like you have sort of some skin in the game.
Absolutely. I really enjoy when I hear journeys like yours about how how this passion leads you into, in this case, something so innovative that has the ability to change so much. So that's really very exciting. Nikita, let's talk just for, I introduced the show, I mentioned a little bit about sort of all the oysters and clams and so forth that we eat. And as you were just saying, aside from being, I agree with you, delicious and nutritious, and we can put that on the side there for now. In reading some of the materials and preparing to talk to you for the show, I was less aware of all the things that these species do for us out there in terms of sequestering carbon, in terms of filtering water. And obviously the flip side of that is, as you were just saying, due to I'm sitting right near the ocean right now, the other side of the Atlantic Ocean from Scandinavia, but contamination, disease, everything else that's out there that they have to put up with. Talk a little bit, because we don't always think about sort of the non-food role that some of these species play, but in this case, it's very important. In a sense, going back as we get into the story of why we be nice to leave them alone so they could do that job while we figure out other ways to eat them.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly sort of, something that we talk a lot about is this idea of thinking about, animals more than just consumption and more than just food. They actually do super important tasks, like you just said, filtering water, sequestering carbon. They're what you call ecosystem engineers, so they really help support larger ecosystems. And if they're set up right, and people that are educated about the complexities of building up an ecosystem sort of help set that up, they can really support them for a long time. In the wild, they actually live up to 20 years. When compared to like farming, we harvest them after 1 or 2 years once they reach adult size. So they really have a lot of time and work in them that they can do and happily support. I know the Billion Oyster Project out by Hudson Bay, they clean out the shells, and they sort of help support just for the purpose of cleaning the waters, and they've had great success with that. So I think it's so important that when we think about animals, that they do have, a lot of them have larger or bigger purposes than just being food on our plates.
Absolutely, extremely important point. Moving now into Pearlita, your focus, as I said at the beginning, in creating this important food source, contamination free. At the same time, we're doing it ethically, sustainably, and at the same time, we, there is aside from the nutrition benefit, as we were saying, they have to taste good. And in the case of, specifically in this case, I would think, because, once again, I love oysters and clams. They not only have to taste good, but they have to feel a certain way. And we've gotten a little into, on some of the previous shows, this theme of organoleptic, that, an oyster should feel like an oyster in my mouth, a piece of sushi, whatever it may be. Take us a little bit. I mean, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the cell culture story, and we talked a little about that before, but talk also a little bit as you're dealing here, and I think you have the additional level in the case of species like oysters. We have a shell. Now, okay, that's probably not part of the culturing process here, but talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are in putting together, whether it's an oyster, whether it's a clam, that looks like that material and ultimately feels like one when I ultimately am going to eat it one day.
Right, right. So for us, we have adherent cells, so they do need actually some kind of scaffold to attach to in order to continue to live, which, in that way we can utilize, stuff from the plant kingdom sort of to help support the texture and the flavor. So we definitely, that's sort of our strategy here to use. And you see that that's pretty common I see that a lot with the other startups as well, that they kind of do a similar type of hybrid product. Of course, there is a challenge because we are trying to, create a whole oyster. So for us, there is a bit of experimentation that goes into, okay, well, which of the tissues are the most important to cultivate when it comes to flavor and texture and nutrition and those type of things. So we have so far isolated 7 different tissue types from both wild and farmed oysters. So we have a lot of different things to pursue, but it definitely takes a little bit of time to figure out, okay, well, which ones are the most important to focus on. So that's a bit of a trial and error area that we step into there.
Absolutely. I like the theme of sort of repurposing materials or natural biomaterials from, as you were saying, the plant kingdom to sort of fill in the gaps for some of those matrices.
Yeah, exactly. And it can really help, bring down the cost as well and make something that is more perhaps shelf stable. And so I think it is a great way to just make stuff last longer, make sure we have more supply. I love everything innovation wise going on with the fungi kingdom is very fascinating as well. So
oh, yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. You could talk a little bit, if you would, about the company. I know recently, you've been on the road a bit, road showing. I know you raised some money from some private equity folks. You're located down in a really hot area of biotech in the North Carolina sort of corridor down there. Take us sort of the background. You or one of the co-founders of the company. Talk a little bit about the background of setting the company up, attracting some of these thought leaders that are in your lab right now. Take us through some of the stories behind what's been going on ever since you set up the company.
Yeah, so we launched in January this year, so we're still brand new. I have an amazing team right now. Cassie is leading the science, and I could not have asked for a better team. I think it's so important that when you start something like this, that you find like-minded people that are equally passionate about the purpose of the company and are willing to go a little bit above and beyond, a little bit, with you and all the crazy ideas. Like you said, we just went on a roadshow where we had a lot of events planned in a very short period of time, where everything is very last minute. And, last minute, you're like, oh, maybe we should make our booth more interactive. Let's make a quick video, right? So I think we did that in, I want to say like less than a week, we put together a video that we could showcase at the booth. So I think when you're this young, it is just so important that you have, or so vital that you have a team that is agile, that is passionate, and that really knows what they're doing. And that's definitely what I feel that I get out of my my science team.
And as far as the investor community is concerned, and as you know, I've had other cell-based food companies on the show, and they come in, and obviously you're just getting started, but they're coming in. I'm just amazed by the checks. I've been in the biotech space and drug development. I was like, wow, these are very big checks that investors are writing. What's the sort of the environment out there right now in terms of cell cultured foods? It seems pretty hot, isn't it?
I think it was. I think right now it's slowing down. Well, it's also summer, so I think every time in the summer. Sure. Well, right now we're recording this in summer. I don't know when it's going to be published, but typically in the summer it slows down a little bit. I used to be on the other side of things, where I would just observe and I would report on the field, which was nice. Now I'm in it and it feels a little more stressful. But I think what I see a little bit now, I do think that there's also a lot of investment going into the supply chain.
Yep.
And so that is good for us as well, because it kind of will help us bring products to market faster and cheaper. So I definitely see a lot of investment going into the space, and I see a lot of more companies and investment popping up within the supply chain as well. And that's so awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually spoken to a few of them. I've been quite surprised because I know once again, thinking back 10 or 15 years or so, everyone was talking about, all the cell culture capability is going to be totally focused on drugs. But, I'm running into these people, these major cell culture contract manufacturing organizations that have cell-based meat units now. It's like, wow, I mean, this has really changed a lot. So that's going to be extremely useful, no doubt, for organizations like you to, as you say, as you scale up and you do the proof of principle and you move from the bench into sort of these larger quantities. That's exciting dynamic as well in 2022.
We just need to bring down the cost, since we are basically borrowing technology from
Sure.
big pharma, which is very pricey. But
yeah, that's the nature of that game, but you'll definitely get there. It was one other interesting thing. Well, a couple interesting facts, and I in a previous career, I spent a lot of time in the sort of the plant biotech world, and we used to talk about how although there was only, I forget what the number was, but say, there's 1,000 plants that we actually eat on this planet. There's hundreds of thousands of plant species out there. And when I was preparing for the show, I was taking a look, and I didn't realize that there is estimated somewhere between 50,000 to 120,000 species of mollusks alone. Now, I don't know, when I go to the restaurant and they say, we got some oysters tonight, they usually tell me about one or two different species they have. When you say, how do you plan for sort of what you're going after here? Because you're not just making oysters, you're obviously thinking about,
Right.
Okay, different, what happens in, off the coast of Massachusetts is different than what's in the ocean here in New Jersey and all that. But how do you plan for sort of how you pick some of these, sort of when thinking of the value and the consumer at the end of the day?
Right. So for us, we have decided to target something that is some of the most popular flavors that are more palatable, so to speak. But we have, of course, been approached by oyster sommeliers and different people that are very excited about the fact that maybe we can, replicate flavors that are much more rare and difficult to come by. That's something that they are very intrigued by. I'm not sure how big the market is for us to target something like that. But it's something that's fascinating. That's what's so exciting about, this type of technology, is that we can really explore, making something that's rare more common, make a product more accessible, and also bring fresh oysters with pure ocean flavor to areas far from the coast. Like, you don't need to be on the coastline to have this food. You can really live anywhere. We can make it anywhere. So I think those are some of the things that are so promising about this type of innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. The ship from far. Yeah, that's going to be an extremely key point. Yeah. Thinking about, continuing along that and just getting a little, once again, creative here. Just like, I say, I was working in the plant kingdom, and we were creating plant-based pharmaceuticals, but also the ocean, in terms of some of these species of mollusks, also creates a lot of has given humanity and offers a lot of unexplored non-food uses. I was just wondering, at the same time that people are coming to you for interesting possibilities in terms of the cell culture for food, any interesting people ever contact you and say, hey, I know what I'm thinking of was, of course, all the work that's been done on sea snails and painkillers. They make really powerful painkillers that make the opioids seem like nothing. But any interesting non-food uses that maybe not today, but maybe in the future, once you get past the oysters, that you might be interested in focusing on?
Oh yeah, like I definitely think that there's a lot of potential for us to explore those different avenues, whether that is, some specific protein or different types of applications. Like, I can see there'd be a lot of opportunity within the cosmetics world, and just like you said, like the pharma world. Since the cell-line hasn't been established yet, that's something that we're actively working on, immortalizing and fully exploring what we can do. It's in the future, but in the near future. So we're not sure quite yet exactly what would be the next thing for us to tackle, but we're staying focused, but definitely not keeping our eyes closed.
All right. Well, here, and then just leveraging off that one, and I give this one to everyone I have on the show in this particular area, but I'll give it to you as well. I'm an eccentric billionaire. I come to you, I say, you know what? I'm not interested in oysters. Here's a check for $1 billion or whatever to support your company. I want you to make me whale shark meat or giant squid or something very exotic and strange. Are you going to take my check and would you make it for me?
I think it would be silly not to. I mean, I could hire a separate team to do that with that kind of check, right? I could focus on mine and just do a different spin out. So.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to give you that one just because I think all the possibilities that these technologies can be used for, but no, it's really exciting. Nick, I know you just came back from a little time on the road, as mentioning. What else is happening hot that I might have missed? Any upcoming conferences that we can see you, meet you at, other talks you're going to be giving, anything else that is on the burner for 2022, please take the floor and tell us about
it. Well, I think the most exciting news for us that we have, we recently showcased our prototype of our plant-based oyster. So we're currently working on scaling that up and hope to really showcase its, all the applications of it here in the, I would say early fall, probably. So we can kind of showcase that. We're still working on the cell line, but we've had great success with the plant-based version and just want to bring that out to the masses as soon as possible. So that's really the focus here in the fall. And in terms of events, nothing is on the books yet. I feel like I just landed at home, but we will see which ones I end up being at. And I really hope that by the time we get to some of those in the fall, that we can actually bring out some samples as well.
Excellent. And I know you just landed, and I appreciate you taking the time after that roadshow to come talk to us. But it's just a really exciting theme. One last thing while I have you, what is your favorite seafood? I mean, if there's one that you had to, you would not give up. What's your favorite thing to eat that comes out of the ocean?
I mean, of course it's oysters, but I gotta be honest. Working with them in the lab, they're more difficult to eat because you get more used to all the stuff all the gunk that ends up in them. So it's a harder oysters as well. But that definitely oysters are on top of my list. But some of the stuff that I mentioned at the beginning as well, crayfish is near and dear to my heart. We have Crayfish Festival in Sweden where I grew up, and eel. My grandma used to make fried eel for us, and it's been many years since she actually was able to find it and make for us while we were home. But those are some of my favorites.
Awesome. I concur with you about the oyster. So. Well, no, this is really an exciting story. I really I love when I hear not just the beginnings of it and the entrepreneurial journey, but that founders like you that have a passion for making this stuff happen in these really unique areas. And it's just I wish you the best with all of this. I'm going to keep following you, and we'll obviously put the links to Pearlita in the bio of the show. For everybody that is going to be listening to this particular episode across the various podcast networks, or will be watching it on our YouTube channel. Again, you've been spending time with Nikita Michelsen, founder and chief executive officer of Pearlita Foods, the world's first cell-based mollusk company, developing sustainable, ethical products, contaminant-free, full of flavor and nutrition. Nikita, I want to thank you once again for taking time to come join us after your long road trip. Obviously, thank you for everything you're doing. And as we say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for all of us through what you're doing. It's really a really exciting story.
Thank you so much for having me. And to listeners that are interested in trying our product, you can sign up for our Tasting West wait list on our website so we can announce when they're happening.
Awesome. I'm going right there after the show. All right, Nikita, be well. Good seeing you.